Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me at this wonderful, wonderful poetry festival. And what a lovely city for a poetry festival as well. Okay. So I was asked by my two fellow poets to start first. Let's get organized. Now, I didn't actually know there was a theme until maybe the day before I arrived, but it turned out that the poems I was planning to read fell quite nicely into the theme as well, which is Yonder shores. I take it to be having to do with our engagement with things overseas, the world, being away, giving you a little flavor of the places we come from and the places we have been to. Well, I'm going to start with a poem about long-distance air travel, which makes all this possible. And it was inspired by my many sort of trips around the world, as well as by a poem by my fellow Southeast Asian poet, the Filipino poet Manny Quilates, who once wrote, "Between our arrivals and our departures, there is a strangely guiltless territory." So this is in transit. With my wife in her usual high-altitude slump, seatbelt fastened, the cabin lights dimmed, and bad comedy on the movie channel, I slip into what one poet has termed the blameless country of air travel. I've plowed through several novels this way, unperturbed, felt the heart surge when a particularly rousing phrase of Beethoven's coincides with the exact moment of takeoff. Sometimes this piece is so rare, I wave off the free champagne. And in economy, the meals are never worth missing the view for. Sunset over the Grand Canyon or the Pacific flowing like silk brocade. Now we enter a sphere of maps, a world abstracted and solid all at once. As settlements snuggle up to rivers and paddy fields play endless checkers on terraced hillsides, there's space enough for long thoughts, wispy musings. Do clouds, for instance, discharge their burdens in relief? Or do they, in their secret hearts, dream of their fallen? And which is the life we regret, what we leave behind, or the one to which we hurl at 800 kilometers an hour? Only at such giddy velocities might we savor the wonder of stasis, how the Earth's rotation holds us easily in place. Just as if we knew the true evanescence of a second, it would stop us in our tracks with indecision, if not physics. So yes, even in seat 34A, risking thrombosis with barely enough room to clap, there's time enough to ponder unseen forces, the invisible lift beneath all our wings, and only the first human century with this luxury of boredom. If the flight were any longer, we would resort to art, plot new routes to godhood. No wonder the pyramids had tombs built like departure lounges, since many of us too would opt to go the ground this way with such conducted ease to the sound of our preferred music in the company of strangers. How good to set off so eager yet unhurried, and to arrive watched for and welcomed at the gates. Our next poem was written during my stint at the Iowa International Writing Program. I've run into quite a few fellow writers here who've been to that program in the US. And those of you who've been at the IWP might recall we were taken to see the Amana colony. You might or might not have done that. And I remember coming across a signboard in the Amana colony that said, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." This was by a very odd American sect descended from Germans fleeing religious persecution in Europe. And they settled in the middle of America and became very, very good at growing vegetables and manufacturing refrigerators. So after a lovely meal of cold salad, at 4 a.m. in the morning, this poem emerged, wholesale in my head. It's called Other Things. So to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. To buy a potted plant is to admit both faithlessness and need. To water the plant, perhaps daily, perhaps once in a while when you remember and the leaves start to droop, is as close to love as it gets. Other things mean other things. To light a lamp is to hide darkness in the same closet as sleep, along with silence, desire, and yesterday's obsessions. To read a book is to marry two solitudes, the way a conversation erases and erects, words prepare for wordlessness, a cloud for its own absence, and snow undresses for spring. The bedroom is where you left it, although the creases and humps on the sheets no longer share your outline or worldview. In that way, they are like the children you never had time for. A cooking pot asks the difficult questions. What will burn? And for how long? And to what end? TV comes from the devil. Who comes from God? Who comes and goes as he pleases? To hide the remote control in someone's house is clearly a sin, but to take the wrong umbrella home is merely human. The phone is too white to be taunting you. The door you shut stays shut. The night is reason enough for tomorrow, whatever you believe. So remember, the car keys will be there after the dance. Walls hold peace as much as distance. A kettle is not reason enough for tears. And the correct answer to a mirror is always yes. There is a moment when the familiar becomes lost and I'm trying to find it. It should be a gradual process, the loosening of leaves from the fold of bark, but instead there is a clear point of divide between what is and what you have known. Like a boy who wakes up one morning and clears his throat to find his voice no longer his own. It could be a similar instant when a chick knows it is time to break down the walls of its shell, or when an old man knows these are the last monsoon rains he will ever see. And we are blind beyond this point, having come ourselves from such a moment like this. And so much of our time is spent denying its presence, fending it off with words, holding back the sea with sandcastles as the tide comes in. But when I find it, I will ask it for its name, so that when it arrives, I can greet it, and we can meet face to face, equal and unafraid. This next poem was actually written after reading Priya Chabri's translations of Andal. And she told me, I told her I was going to read this at this festival, and she said to remember to say that Bangalore and this region has a great tradition of Bhakti poets as well. So this is more of a tribute than appropriation. And it's called Andal, Feeding the Pigeons. Don't be parrots, bound by thread to the voice of the master. Be the master, the lilt in his step, the stove of his loins, the ember fleeing into the crisp dawn air as the beloved approaches. Enter through his eyes and finish his perfection with longing. Take this grain and tell the faithless one, I am coming. I will pen him with my body. When my body is spent, I will pour breath into his lips. When I run out of breath, these words will nourish him. He can feast on their hunger. This is how we mortals tame our gods. Just two more, I think. This one is called To Go to Spore. Spore is sort of the short form version of Singapore, which is a common way of writing Singapore back home. S apostrophe P-O-R-E. And of course, it's sort of redolent with all sorts of meanings because spore is also that little seed. Although I like to remind myself, spores result not in flowers, but in fungi. And it's sort of loosely inspired by Adam Zagajewski's To Go to Lvov, which is a city in Ukraine, oddly enough, which also means lion. So it's a poem about a lion city inspired by a poem about a lion city, and I didn't know at the time until I went to the Ukraine. Funny how poetry works. To go to Spore, which station for Spore, if not in a dream at dusk when rain glistens on chrome, when mass rapid trains and light rail trains are borne to all corners. To leave in a hurry for Spore, night and day, in August or in May, but early, but only if Spore exists, if it is to be found within the bounds of this island and not just in the color of my passport, of my smart card, if the smell of rain trees after thunderstorm of Angsana or frangipani still lingers like fresh smoke, if the canals brim and grumble like epithets in Hokkien vanish beneath ground. To pack up and go, to leave and never look back at 5 p.m. to cease like shop windows, while beneath the whirl of fans in coffee shops, geckos chatter their politics. But the office tower rises straight as the law, and everyone standing in its shadow, and a mop and bucket leaning on window glass, and our dream which hadn't come yet, only concrete and litter bins, and the rainbow pulse of new pubs set to music, the low bass tremble of bumboats rocking. Always too much of Spore. No one could fathom the depths of their neighborhoods, walk the inside trails between each block and hear the creak and hiss of each brick speaking, scalded by sun. At night, the city's muteness, the dead stillness in Shenton Way, unlike those of temples where monks keep silent, full of unseen rivers. In Liangxia Street, history spilt in unlit stairwells and on window louvers, swinging and shutting by themselves in china blue ceramic tiles, in flour, in the smell of eggs, the form of feathers plastering the walls, in green muck collecting in rusty pipes, fronds growing where laundry once sprouted, and the streets playing percussion and the air singed. The procession of the devout sang like kings of the world towards the temple gates. People in such frantic joy, they didn't want to stay indoors. So much life, it burst and flooded every street. It cracked the sky in thunder and fireworks. The new year lived over and over. My granny, as she stood at the window, calling for my father, dinner ready and steaming in the evening light, and neighbors shouting from windows, watching out for trouble and the next meal, and nothing tentative as hope. An uncle slaved himself blind reading by candlelight while my father was out catching fireflies. The health inspector came and my grandfather bought him a drink and covered the cockroaches with his soul and got away with it. Even then there was too much of Spore. It overflowed each drain, came down as rain, so much and yet none. What was there spawned, grew, cut into shape, not without love, and now the green June springs from every square, verdant wigs pulled over everything. Weeds, Atap, Kampong, and 5-foot Way fell away as the towers rose, pushing out above the temples. People shuffled on, handbags and wallets full of tomorrow, and every estate growing into each other, and everyone a leaseholder, and now in a hurry to just go, and somewhere to come and go from. Spore tucked every which way, Spore clutched in the small palm of the sea, becoming and flowing in like tears, tides, currents, rivers run beneath the surface, everywhere. Just one last one. This one is a flavor of Singapore, and it's written in the local vernacular. It's called Singlish. And it's a mix of different tongues, really, that make up Singapore. Of course, it's loosely English, but it's sort of inflected by all the different languages that make up who we are. And it's based on the story of my father as a child. When he was younger, this was just after World War II. They couldn't afford electric lights, so he told me he had to steal candles from the nearby church in order to study. So just one last one. And so it's written in 2 voices. Candles. Oi. Appa, oi. Sorry, I start again. Oi. Appa, no, you take candle from the church again, you're going to get it. Never mind, I bring them back when you study finish. You don't say he won't know. So dark, how to read, how to study. Got moon tonight, can read a bit. Our Leong house got light. I use mirror, borrow a bit of light, good enough. Candle, you bring back. I don't want to get scolding because of you. I bring all the way home. You ask me bring back for what? Anyway, tonight, Good Friday, church got so many candles, they where got notice 9 less. Notice, don't notice, also wrong. You bring them back. Don't want. Go now, late already. Wait, Appa come home, you die. Don't want. Wait, the sisters see me bring back so many candles, they know I took them. Just say you're giving them to baby Jesus lah. You're so stupid. Baby Jesus is Christmas lah. Good Friday is dead Jesus. Anything lah. I not go church one, how I know this kind of thing. You just bring them back, okay? Appa always say, people must be honest. Cannot steal, cannot cheat, cannot lie. Appa say that, but he also lie what? Last week, health inspector come, he also lie, say our house very clean. Actually, he hide 2 dead cockroach under one shoe. Familiar, right? Yeah. That was different. That was government. Lie to government don't count. Because they don't care whether you're good or bad. They just want money for license. No license, we die. They where got care. Then Jesus also like government what? He where got care whether you blind or not, house got light or not. He just hang up there all day for people to see, put money in the box, give him so many candles for nothing. And then he also not taking exam. I borrow some candles to study, why cannot? Up to you lah. Say so much also no use. You better go study before Appa come home. You see, you say so much now, I hungry already. I go downstairs, buy me from Fat Girl. You want? Don't want. I full already. Wait, Amma see you eat some more, she scold you. Eat and eat, so fat and stubborn like pig. You wait, you don't study, fail exam, then you know. You're so fat and stubborn, next time you can do what? I can be driver like Appa. Or sell meat like Ah Leong. Or gangster like Ah Sun. Then government come ask for money, I call my gang, beat them up. Anyone bully you, I beat them up. Siao, gangster. Get injured how? Head kena parang, chop one big hole how? Then you better quickly study and become doctor lah. Then if I need hospital, you can cure me. Then Paul cough also can cure. Then you make a lot of money, then got light in the house. Then don't need to borrow candle from Jesus anymore. Thank you.
So, this is my second time in India, thankfully. I've been a guest of Aragalara last time as well, doing some events there. So, I think I'll pick it up from the Christian stuff and start with a poem that is dedicated to a friend who is a Bangalore poet, Reshma Ramesh, who is somewhere here in the crowd. New Delhi, almost New Year. I want to believe again, as I did in India, when Reshma took me to the Hindu temple in Bangalore and told me that everything is possible. On the way back, we already lost our way, but we laughed. We were brave and we knew it. Now, in New Delhi, almost New Year, a crow, rat, and parakeet eat together breadcrumbs from a bowl beside the ruined mosque in Lodi Garden. I already doubt, and Reshma isn't even that far, as of now. The second is promised lands. Usually this term is used in a singular promised land or their promised land, and this there referred usually to Israel. I revisited this idea after coming here to India last time. Promised lands. How can we apply language to a place like India? On the outskirts of Vijayawada, the women sit sideways behind the men who ride the motorcycles. Their saris don't match their speed. It coincides better with a stride, like the one of the cows on the road, not harried by herons. On the roadside, there are pineapples, custard apples, but no apples. The custard apples are green porcupines, and the pineapples, well, they pine for the above insufficiently with their stout yellow pine tree trunks and with their sharp tree tops cutting up into humidity. Must all sweetness be guarded by prickles? You pine for the custard ones. Their eyes are dark and many, stuck in a too sweet flash. Their rubbed-off skin seem harder than it is. Amusingly green porcupines. They're so easy to stroke, to crack open. Dark-eyed as well, like a bottomless well, are the men who sell them. They sell them for almost nothing, and yet each time they offer you an extra one. Can only a land that is not promised have this kind of generosity? Of course, no one has ever reached the promised lands. Yet we keep at it, marching toward them. Yearning doesn't cover for their absence. You believe that if you traveled until fuel ran out, your tank would be filled up with passion. However, all paths you take have the sole intent of bypassing pain. What will happen if you'll convert the order so after you'll manage to settle, even if on a quicksand, you will start wandering? You carry a Pandora box instead of a backpack. Words leak from it. The reek of loneliness dangles around your neck like a necklace, like a gatekeeper. You're not shielded, not by ornaments that sparkle like a wink, not even by sunglasses, but the sun won't melt down what isn't tearing up from your exposed, pale eyes. You're not an open tap. You don't flush, even though you do stretch out too many hands. Passers-by don't pass near your pain either. There are no maps that show you the way to Saturday solitude, and the truth is that you fear drought. But here, even the milk has dried out into a powder. What can you make of a dry horizon that is monochromatic compared to the colorful present that passes by you? You, with your scraggly, porcupine-like curly hair, sans color, not even earth, are you able to put this silky-to-touch armor away? Or better yet, be a heron, white and light like a fresh start, with no pressing need or desire to carve its own path. There's always a cow to follow, not to pass. Or even better, be a cow. They have already reached their promised land. No matter how far you'll get, how weary, this knowledge can't be taken away. In every promise, the seed of disappointment is planted to begin with, even if there's still a desert to cross in order to reach it. So about the attempts to get back home. Wider car. I used to be a car running with no fuel and fast. They filled my tank with violence, so I floated until I stopped. Then I started to return. Wider, slower, dripping traces of oil so I'll know how to come back home. I'll read this one in Hebrew as well. הייתי מכונית שנוסעת בלי דלק ומהר. מילאו את המיכל שלי אלימות, וקרטעתי עד שפסקתי. חזרתי לנסוע, צחורה ואיטית יותר, נוטפת תקוות שומן, שידע איך לחזור הביתה. So before leaving that home, my brother called me to wish me a safe journey, and he's been to India as well to a significant amount of time and had significant experiences here. And he told me, you know, I think India is the last place that still believes in love. And this is a notion that I take with me here. And of course, you know, it was taken away from me here as well with taxi drivers or so, but I still hold it. So I'll read a two-liner about my brother. So my brother, we are the same materials, but in a different timing. And now I'll read about a larger family that I think I belong to, which is the pedestrians' family or caste. And I almost hug everyone that takes me through the road here, so in here it also becomes something different. It's filled with the place's colors, I guess. Pedestrians cheer. We, the pedestrians, are of a different caste. In urban scenery, Among the humans, ours is the closest to animal nature. Much heavier than birds and much rarer, we migrate from one side of the pavement to the other. We are the only species that gathers in random flocks, even just to cross the road, supporting one another, standing by the traffic light. Come humid heat wave or polar plunge, we become singular, and less. Just like the birds in need of breaking free from cages, but out at the mouth, even if what is out there that we're so keen about is as ambiguous. We turn each bus seat, every subway car, into a temporary nest, a home, even though public. You'll recognize us, the only ones comfortable, biting a sandwich on the move. Watch our legs, salute the changing seasons reflected on our skin, our faces. When we come to your homes, oases, respect us the same way you'd honor a truth-telling mirror. You, air-conditioned people, soon the planet will be solely yours, will be extinct, no better than any other breed. We, the pedestrians, with all modesty, are the servants of modern lives. For what is Main Street? Mainstream. Mainstream, without its sides, its sidewalks, and its sidewalkers. So, since it's a festival, I think I'll read a poem about a carnival. It's close enough. And then I'll do one short, and that would be that. Carnival. We are going to the carnival. We are doing our best efforts to have fun. While we are waiting for the fun to kick in, we are trying to avoid the pain, meaning each other. We have so many ways to fight, shooting our anger from long-distance calls, internet chats, and even postcards, slapping our disappointment at each other from too short distance, hurting, fossilizing from having no distance at all. So many ways to fight, so little opportunities to surrender. Maybe all we need is just the perfect, peaceful scenery, the kind that will inspire us to reveal again the beauty that once we held together. We are sitting at Ontario Lake. The CN Tower is watching our behavior. No worries. We never dared to curse out loud, to curse intentionally. The heat lowered our eyes in a manner that might be mistaken as shyness. Silently, hungrily, we are waiting for some good to come. As my usual manner, I do not have enough patience to wait until perfection, meaning peace, will come. I know I will just give up and in, letting you get up and in my body. But just before replacing insistence upon sincerer peace in penetration, we will find a square of shade, relief, eating fried plantains, succeeding in making some kind of conversation of how yummy it tastes. We already forgot we came here to have fun. I'm not even checking my watch to see if now it's my time to open up. The sun is already setting down. The carnival is rushing to renew its clearing, to switch into seductive mode. We are slipping into something more comfortable, switching our effort to rejoice in the attempt to get to bed, but just to sleep as soon as possible. Eventually, the carnival is the one to subdue us. All that is left for us to do is just to drag ourselves back home, back to our weary war. So, before I'm back to weary wars, the last poem would be also a way of thanking you and Aragalada and being here. Colonized. How lucky we are to be colonized enough into English, to have found each other there. Is it a message disguised as a poem, or a poem fused into a message? To allow my romanticism, I am counting on your drunkenness. You are out there somewhere in the ocean of cyberspace. I imagine you are drowning there. I imagine the ocean has drunk you. I SMS this SOS. It won't save you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's an extreme honor to read with these two poets in front of you, and in a culture that has such a rich literary history of poetry. So, I'm going to read you some very small poems in my language, as well as in English translation. Mein rechter Platz ist leer. Ich wünsch mir alle Freunde her. Ich wünsch mir, dass ich keinen verliere. Ich wünsch mir, dass keiner nach Haus muss, wenn das Fest noch nicht aus ist. Red Rover, let all my friends come over. Let them all come to stay, not go away. Let not a single one leave before the party is done. Let there be no more forest inside us, only round us. Ich wünsch mir den Wind in die Äste, die Spiele im Schatten, die rauschenden Feste, bis sich die stoffblaue Nacht um uns legt und uns wie Kinder nach Hause heimträgt. Let there be wind in the trees, games in the shade, parties like these, until, like children in the blue of night, we are taken home, tucked up tight. So, I am from Berlin. Berlin is the capital of Germany, and Germany is a very small country, and it looks powerful from the outside, but it feels weak from the inside. And that has to do with our language, because writing poetry in German always means dealing with our heritage, which is a dark heritage. And because all the atrocities of at least World War II, leave alone all the other atrocities, have been done in German language. So I'm gonna just read shortly two poems which will not be in my language, but because I want you to understand them, that writing is always, for me, it's always dealing with my heritage. Here is the passage from the street back to winter 1938. The small, inconspicuous curtain of history, a child-sized gate and the iron railings, 6 steep down to the dried-up riverbed close to the zoo. Waiting 2 days, having to stand with their stars and being inspected in broad daylight. Then finally off to the station, into the trucks. That's when the first fell like flies, like chaff. And later again, the little wood of beach and snow. That is where this story ends. But here is the passage. Here's where it all starts again. Stop. When the loudspeakers are silent, the spotlights are dimmed, when the sound of the last chorus has died away behind the scenes of history, when the actors' uniforms have been hung up and the cleaners have gone home, when the auditorium stands quiet in the half-light. That's when you get back up on stage and say after me, the whole thing was not real. And no one here came to any harm. So say after me, the whole thing was not, stop. But luckily, writing poetry is not always about history and not always about feelings. Sometimes it's very much about grammar. And so the last thing I'm going to show you is only in German for you. But what I like about the Indian culture is that you guys are used to not always understand every language. So this makes such a difference for me. So it's but I can tell you that it deals with the form to address people. So, because unlike in many Indian languages, in my German language, there's only two forms to address to people. There's the formal and there's the intimate address. And the formal address is used very rarely, not as often as it should be actually, and the intimate address is used as much as you can do because it's so easy. So, and I tried to do something in the formal address. I know this is the wrong book, this is the wrong language. So just imagine you understand it. You'll understand it. Sie sagen Sie. Ja, wo laufen Sie denn etwa mir nach? Unterstehen Sie sich wohl, ja, sagen Sie mal, mich hier vor den Leuten zu duzen zugetrauen. Sie habe ich ab heute ja überhaupt nicht gekannt, sag ich Ihnen. Jawohl, direkt in Ihr Schnauzengesicht. Und wer nochmal hinter mir Scherze zu reißen, Sie Schnauzengesicht, Sie, oh Schnauzengedicht, sagte ich schon. Sie schneuzige Lachnudelpresse, Sie, pa, sagen wir besser, Sie Terrierfresse. Ihr Herz ist ein Hund. Ich geb's Ihnen schriftlich. Unterstehen Sie sich wohl, mich jemals wieder zu duzen zu getrauen. Sie treiben's zu bunt, sag ich Ihnen. Sie Spund. Thank you very much.